Hello, podcast family, and welcome to Regulation Revolution, where we are igniting a revolution to help the world effectively manage and respond to their emotional experiences. It's not about what happens to us, but how we react that creates harmony or chaos in our lives. Emotional regulation is a complex process involving many factors. We offer this podcast to provide insight for you about how you fine-tune and powerfully decide to transform your complex emotional states into empowered instances of self-mastery, peace, and increased awareness. Instead of having your emotions control you, you can learn to have control over your emotions. The following program in no way constitutes therapeutic counseling and does not establish a therapeutic relationship or offer any premise of confidentiality with any listener or participant. For more information, visit us at regulationrevolution.com. Welcome to today's episode of Regulation Revolution with your co-hosts Amy Reamer and Barry Vassar, Heart and Mind. Amy is a licensed therapist, professional speaker, and teacher. Barry is a pre-licensed therapist and practice manager at Heart and Mind. To find out more about Heart and Mind, please visit heartmindrba.com.
Welcome once again to Regulation Revolution. Thank you for joining us, podcast family. There is Amy. Hi, Amy.
Hello.
Here is Barry. Thank you again for joining us. Remember, you can tune in on YouTube, Spotify. You can find us at regulationrevolution.com. We're so thankful for our supporters and the folks that are really tuning in and really taking some of these podcasts to heart. Today, Amy, we have a fun little regulation topic, talking about couples. Who's ruling the roost? The roost, something to do with the roost, right? So one of the things Amy and I discussed just briefly before we started was that, it's one thing when your partner is having an issue with something or somebody going haywire in their life, and you're the person who's providing regulation, you're the person who's responding, trying to be there and be available. It's different when you're the problem, right? It's easy. You can be regulated as long as he or she is, the problem is with work, right? The problem is with a friend. The problem is with a relative. But then when the problem is you got all kinds of tigers out, don't you, Amy?
Yeah. I think we named this one, the rules of the roost, the couple's nervous system dance. It's much easier to help somebody regulate when I'm not the problem. My stuff or my feelings or my whatever are not sort of getting brought into it. It's easy for me to be a champion for you. Oh yeah, they're such a jerk, and you are so right. You should blah blah blah. Like I can be your cheerleader. I could be your champion. When it's somebody else. Me, I'm gonna get defensive and I'm gonna defend my own self.
One of the things that I run across with couples, and I share this with most men in the relationship, and the ones who get it right. And this is going to sound so wrong when I say it, but it makes perfect sense to me. I tell a man the best words you can hear from a woman is, "I don't want to talk about it." You hear the hallelujah chorus. So because a lot of times with guys, you talk about with Tiger being out, and it's not just with guys, but when one partner kind of goes to shutdown and your radar goes off, hey, you look upset. Are you mad? What's going on? And they say, I don't want to talk about it. That one partner somehow goes into this tiger mode of, I'm now going to pursue you from room to room and continue. And so I tell people, you're probably not the problem until you make yourself the problem, because your tiger comes out. Now, why does it come out? I'm being abandoned. I'm being shut down. There's something scatterwonky. And so I'm like, the best role play I will do with couples is, are you upset? Yeah, I'm upset. Does it have to do with me? It has to do with you. Do you want to talk about it? Nope. Hallelujah chorus. Walk out the room. When they're ready to talk about it, they'll let you know. But it's funny how freeze tiger, right? I got a problem, I'm mad, whatever it is. So one person may shut down, and the other person senses that disconnect, I guess, and they're trying to grab back at the relationship.
Yeah. I mean, it all comes down to that connection when you're feeling like it's getting lost, whether that's because they're angry. You could have two fire tires. And so there could be some angry and fight and irritability and, that kind of thing going on. Or
Mhm.
someone's, like you said, going into ice tiger and they're sort of shutting down, collapsing, withdrawing. Then it feels like, oh, they're leaving me, they're abandoning me. There's this feeling. And of
Mhm.
course, a lot of this probably harkens back to people's histories and all that good stuff. But, for in the moment, it's just, that part doesn't matter so much. It's how do we help each other?
Right.
Um, you know, when I've worked with couples and we talk about that sort of myth about, relationships there should be 50-50. And so, but I'm like, that's just not reality because and it's gonna change. Like sometimes it's probably is gonna be kind of 50-50,
Mhm.
depending on what's going, the situation. But, if someone loses their job, right, they're gonna need a little bit more support. They're not
Mhm.
gonna maybe be able to handle as many tasks or keep up with things, or they might be have less patience with the kids or something like that because they've got this major stressor in their life. So they need more than 50% from you.
Mhm.
And and then another day you may have a pet that dies. And so now like
Right.
you need more, right? So it is about that balance of who needs what and where
Mhm.
the most conflict or problems come in is when we both need 80% and there's only 100% total.
Right.
Where getting that extra 60?
Right.
Where is that coming from? Right? And then we're feeling hurt, like, "Where are you?" You disappeared because they're dealing with their own stuff, and so there's that. I think that's where most of that comes in. I think most
Mhm.
people on a regular basis handle those little shifts back and forth fairly well.
Right.
But you get when both people have a big need or you have a big need that just happens to fall right behind me thinking about, that whole hippo, right? The hippo brings up a memory. And so that puts me in a space. And then
Mhm.
you have a big need and I'm not able to meet that or I'm not able to get there. Um, so I think that's a big that's the dance, right? It's that's when we're either stepping on each other's shoes or we're both tangoing off to the other side of the room.
Well, it's one of the key problems I see is, and I can understand why it can be difficult, but it's just in communicating. See, you're having the feeling, you're having the need, but you're not communicating what you need. And that is that sort of situation of, no, everything is fine. That sort of, no, I'm all right. And they're not all right. And the partner, I'm convinced that some people really do have most people probably have a good radar if they pay attention to it. When something is off. And a lot of times I'll run into why, I don't know why he or she just lies to me about it. I can see they are upset. It's visible. And it's because they're not in that space. And so I I try to get folks to just communicate. So if people would practice communication, just honest, authentic communication, a person walks in the door, looks at their partner and says, listen, don't take it personal. I'm in a bad mood. I've had a rough day at work. I've been short with everybody. So if I'm short with you or a little distant, it's not you, it's me. Can you handle that? And the other person may actually look back and say, you know what? I had a lousy day today and I've been waiting to go off on somebody. So probably I'm not in a space to deal with your mood tonight. You're not in a space to deal with mine. Why don't we just go to our separate corners for the night? This is what we need to do to be okay. Or the other person might look back and say, you know what? Tell me all about it. I'm in the gray headspace. If you're short with me, I can deal with it. One day, um, I talked some time ago with a couple and I said, so you mean to tell me this individual, which brings in more than half the income, is a good parent by your standards, right? Is honest, trustworthy, faithful, good provider, shows up for you for all of your family events and, blah, 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 went through the whole list. And I'm like, and because he gets a look on his face every now and then, you get mad at him over a look. you get mad at her because she was short with you one day out of 7 this week. She was a bit snippy or snappy. So you mean to tell me 52 times out of 365 days, and they start seeing the numbers. And I'm like, so you're sitting there walking around with your tigers out, fighting and fussing all week long because he or she spoke harshly to you on Tuesday. Would you just take the trash out? Leave me alone. And that comment, the way it was delivered, caused y'all to fight all week. Can't you just give a little bit of grace, a little bit of understanding, kind of tame that tiger a little bit and say, he or she is having a moment right now. This is not the normal day with them. But I think because our tigers are so quick to come out, you just snapped at me, so now tiger's out. I've been threatened.
Yeah.
So it's one of the really going back to the tiger taming drills when it comes to the dance.
Well, yeah, and it's also it's understanding that what's going on is sort of inside of them, and not necessarily about me, but defensiveness can still come out, protectiveness will still come out because that's our tiger's job, right? Like as I these barbs and they look dangerous, so I'm gonna to bring something out to defend myself. But the reality is that something that I do have to defend myself against, right? It's the perception. And our perceptions are going to be different, all depending on our experiences growing up, what our relationships were like, how emotions were handled in our homes, conflict, cultures. And there are a lot of cultures that openly argue and fight everything out, and then the next minute are sitting down, laughing and joking and eating. And then there are other cultures that all emotions are sort of shut down and discarded or hidden. And so when emotions come out, people don't know what to do with them, or they're put them back in the closet. So much is going to be about your own histories of what you grew up with and what emotions mean. If I see that look, does that look mean someone's about to go off? Or does that look mean someone's about to insult me? Does that, like, what is it's my interpretation of that look, whereas your look could just be you're constipated, you know? I mean, like, literally, like, a look can mean so many different things because it's all about our own perception and what we're reading that as. Because again, our tiger is a radar that's looking for signs of danger and cues of danger. And if we grew up with not feeling too safe or not feeling very able to manage things, or it wasn't acceptable to have these feelings, then we tend to and the tiger does tend to default more to the danger side than it does safety side. And if you grow up with a lot of danger, you're definitely going to be defaulting to danger signs. So if your interpretation around you is always that it's something that's wrong or there's a problem or something bad's going to happen, that's just a sign that you're in that hyper vigilant, like, kind of watching for danger. So yeah, so then what happens is yeah, because your tiger picks up on some danger, then thinks it needs to come out and protect you. The other metaphor I use with couples is castles. So like if you were a castle and I was a castle, and so when you start lobbing cannonballs over from your castle, but my castle's gonna return fire, right? And so the problem is that a look isn't necessarily cannonballs. It's just you interpreted it that way. That's the way you're seeing it. And so, nervous systems are going to be doing different things all the time, all day. And so I know that like when I'm apparently working on a computer, I have sort of the resting bitch face. Like, so like I'll be working on my computer, and my husband will walk through the door and be like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Nothing. I'm doing payroll." Um, and it's fine. Like there's a problem with payroll, right? Like it's just click, click, tick. But the way that my face is when I'm concentrating, or getting many classes, like looking a spree, I don't know. But like his history and his perception is when I see that face, there's a problem. Something's wrong. And and so yeah, there's like we're reading. I guess if we look at it like a book, if you were a book, I'm reading your cover, and then it was that don't judge a book by its cover, right? That cover that you're showing right now may not be very accurate for the book on the inside.
Right. Well, and that's where I keep bringing it back to with folks. quite often, always have, is learning communication, learning how to communicate can resolve a lot of this. So, all right, great. You're a hypervigilant person. Everything's a threat in your world. Great. Not taken away from that. Stop long enough just to ask. Just ask. Just so like you said with your husband, he's like, everything all right? Yeah, everything's fine. I'm just, look, I get on the computer. Oh, okay. As opposed to saying, wow, she must be really mad at me because she's been sitting there with her face in that computer and she's got that look on her face. And you walk in with, what is the problem? Well, even if you present it that way, there wasn't one until you showed up. It's so I keep coming back to uh, telling folks, be honest enough to say what it is. Be honest enough to ask when you see something. To put it simple, that's it. And you don't. And language. It's funny in these dances in relationship with the nervous system and regulation and everything else. It's all in the wording and the words that you use. Hey, you look ticked off. Well, right away, no, that doesn't work. You know, hey, are you mad at me? Oh my gosh, I wasn't till now. How about everything going okay? No, I'm actually lost in my head right now. I'm mad at somebody at work and I got to deal with them tomorrow. And I just don't want to talk about it. Okay, if you want to talk about it later, let me know. Pass the salt and just move forward. Say what you need. I tell people quite often that when your partner comes in the door and they start to tell you the story, right? So you come in the door, or even if you came in the door to tell me, I'm not your partner, but if you came in the door and said, you know what? I am so mad. First thing I'm gonna say is, does it have anything to do with me? And if you say, no, it doesn't, I'm like, okay, my tiger doesn't even need to be out for this. Thanks. Clarify. Then the next thing I ask, I do this with everybody, is, do you want me to be a sounding board? Do you want me to give you a critique and give you input? Or do you want me to cheer you on? And the example I will use, and I make up the different examples, is, if you want the sounding board, then you explain, you just keep venting about how hard you kicked that cat because it crossed in front of you. If you want me to be a cheerleader, I'll say that cat deserved it, even if I think it was a bit crazy. And if you want my feedback, give it. Just tell me. So it's asking a person, what do you need? And also you could bring that tiger of yours. You could stop the tiger from even getting out the cage, right? So a person comes in the door, they've got the mood, your partner's got that look in that mood, and it's usually a fight when that happens. So tiger stands up in the cage, but I don't need to open the door yet. Hey, you got that kind of angry thing going on. Well, I am. Does that do with me? No, and I want to be left alone. Tiger, go down. That's it. We're cool. Left
So
alone.
it's funny when you were thinking about that, I was, thinking about how we called this the nervous system dance, right?
Right.
And we also had just done the episode before this was about the blended states, right? The play zone. Well, your tigers can play together. Your tigers can dance. I was thinking about your tigers can tango. Your tigers can tango without fighting, right? So that's the communication. That's the let me check this before I go to fight mode. Let me investigate this. So that's the dance. That's the tango. If you want your tigers to dance and not fight, then this is what you do, right? So the dance is asking the right questions, checking in with them, offering, different types of support, and they may not even know what they want, right? Like that, and that's okay, right? Like they may not even be able to answer that question, but you've offered it, right? That we go back to that. It's my job to offer safety. It's their job to decide if they want to take it. The tiger can come offer the tango dance, and they might smack the tiger's hand and say, "Move slower," right? Um, or they might take it and they might like swing you around the floor a little bit. But it's remembering that this is a person that I love and I care about, and I decided to spend the rest of my life with, and they are not a threat to me.
Right.
They are struggling right now. So I think so much of it is if we learn where we're at, and I was also thinking about so much of how we interpret things, though, also depends on where we're at. So I have that abandonment type of thing. So if someone's leaving, so with my But if I'm in a good place, so if I'm in ventral, right, I'm at the top of the ladder,
Mhm.
my tiger is a normal tiger that's hanging out with the owl and the hippo. We're
Mhm.
all just sort of having a party. My husband has to leave and go to work. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, honey, love you. Have a good night. See you later. Right.
Mhm.
If I'm in a bad space, maybe the hippos brought up some sad memories or, things like that, losses or whatever. Excuse me. And he leaves to go to work. I'm like, why are you leaving me? And it's become almost like a little joke because it will be one or the other when he
Right.
leaves, and he's like, "I'm not leaving you. Get about going to work. I'll be home at this time," right? And so because he has now recognized that's my little bit of my tiger kind of coming out
Mhm.
that's caused by him leaving,
Mhm.
he doesn't get upset about it. He doesn't try to fix it. He doesn't stay home from work, call in sick, to
Right.
avoid me feeling that, right? Which people do these things, right? To try to
Right.
fix it and make it better. And so, but he just addresses the reality of you're afraid of something that's not actually happening, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm going to work and I'll be home at this time. Love you.
Mhm.
See you later, right? Like, so it avoids you know, that like him trying to fix it or him trying to because you're not gonna fix whatever memory that probably got is being triggered or whatever headspace I'm in that moment
Right.
isn't gonna be fixed by somebody calling out sick and staying home with you.
Mhm.
It's not going to fix it.
No.
Uh, it's a little Band-Aid for the moment, but it's not gonna fix the underlying issue. So, we have developed, over time as a couple, understanding each other and what
Mhm.
that we can do to help in that moment. And that's the dance, right? That's the dance that you wanna get to,
Right.
is what you were saying, which was that communication piece or the asking the questions. So, if you want your I like that. If you want your tigers to tango and not tussle, we wanna stick with the alliteration, um, and go and not tussle, then you have to learn how to have that communication
Mhm.
and each person has to know where they're at. Alright,
Right.
you learn your own state. Even if you don't know where the other person is, if you know where you're at, that's like 75% of the battle right there.
I had a couple. They told me I could share their story. I could never share the name. That they got it right. And it was such a wonderful thing because the way it took place, this is the way their dialogue works. You look like you're upset. I'm mad at you. Other person responded with, I need you to hold that anger until later on because I'm in such a mood right now. Whatever you throw at me, I'm going to blast back at you. And they understand that in that communication, if nobody was threatened by it, it was just this is where I'm at. So the one person's like, if you want to bring it, go ahead and bring it, but I'm not in a place to take it, and I'm going to bring it back even worse. So why don't we just hold on to that anger a little bit and talk about this later? And they do that, and it's appreciated, it's respected, and the other person doesn't feel like they're being shut down. They're actually saying, I kind of appreciate when my partner does that because I don't know whether they're in the mood to take what I'm going to hand out or not until they tell me. The other thing that was I thought was so wonderful, it's a new direction I'm going in. It's probably been I know it's been around for years and years and years and years and years. I just don't pay attention. But I've been telling people that your nervous system will give you the answer. And and the example I want to give in this same situation, the partner was very upset, was sitting on the bed, tears, everything else. So Owl is gone, Hippo's under, Tiger's out, right? Partner comes in there. Do you want me to sit with you? I don't know. Do you need something? Do you want me to get you something to eat or drink? I don't know what I want. And I actually coached them through this. This was during session time, and I said, "Here's what you do: sit down next to her, and her body will say whether she wants you there or not." And so he sat down next to her, and she was like, "No, I just want you to go away." I was like, "There's your answer." I said, "Now go downstairs, bring up some water, and bring her something to eat." And we brought it up there to her. She wanted something to drink. She didn't want something to eat. But the nervous system was the answer. I was like, ask her if she wants your hand on her shoulder. And so I'm coaching them through this. And he's like, do you want me to rub your back? I don't know. Okay, you can tell me. And he reached over and started rubbing her back. And she was like, Yes, I want you to rub my back. I'm like, the nervous system has the answer. You're
Yeah.
it goes
And you're offering, right? But the thing is the understanding for the person offering has to be that even if they don't accept what you're offering, it's not a personal attack.
right. It's not a rejection.
It's just the nervous system can't handle it right now. The tiger is not thirsty, but if you offer it, they might be, and it could be helpful, right?
Well, it's like I equate it to dealing with a little kid. When we've gone to that point of where you're in tears, at that point, you're looking at the kid, it's like, do you want mommy to get you something to eat? Oh no. Do you want to go take a nap? Oh no. Do you want to watch TV? Oh, watch TV. And it may not be that melodramatic, but that's kind of what's going on in your head when that owl has flown off and you're very upset about something. You don't know. Nervous system. I've walked through the streets of Richmond at different points, and I've walked down one particular street several times. On one particular day, when I went to walk down the street, for whatever reason, my whole nervous system said, "Not today." There was nothing different about it. There was, no drugs being dealt. Nobody standing there looking suspicious. It was just a alleyway cutting through. Used it dozens of times. But on that one particular day, for whatever reason, my nervous system just said, "I don't think we want to do this." And so I walked around. So I've been learning how to listen to my gut and my nervous system, and I think it will tell you the answer. Um,
Yeah.
I did it with rope climbing with my kids. We got up to a particular point on the rope, going up the little rope thing kids like to do and such. And they were like, "Well, what happens if I get scared?" I'm like, "You just go back down." And they're like, "How will I know if I get scared?" I'm like, "You won't want to keep going up." It didn't. Sure enough, got up, got to a certain point. It was like, "Okay, I'm high enough. I'm going back down."
Mhm.
So anyway, just throwing those in there. It's learning your nervous system and your partner's nervous system.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if I've shared this story before or not, but when we talk more with kids and things, but you were saying like it was similar when kids have like a meltdown or whatever. Before I didn't know all of this. I didn't know any of this stuff. When my daughter was adopted and when she would have meltdowns, and I was just a parent trying to figure this out. I'd read some books on adoption and parenting adopted kids and kids with trauma and things like that. But um when I look back at it, I understand now, like, why certain things would work and why certain things didn't work, and I realized what I was doing, and so what I was doing oftentimes was dealing with my own nervous system because everything I tried with her wasn't working, or the things that I had done with, my sons who were older than her didn't work, and so, I would use like you were saying, like, if you sit next to her, her body will tell you, right? Well, I
Mhm.
use her screams to tell me whether I was going in the right direction or not because it
Mhm.
wasn't verbal. Again, when the owl is gone, their words because she was at the time she was 7, 8 years
Mhm.
old. So, she had words, she was able to talk. This isn't an infant. But when we regress back to that state, we lose our language often. So she couldn't tell me. Even if I asked her a question, she could not answer a question. So I
Right.
couldn't, say, "Do you want some water?" Right? Right. But if I would go, so I'm like, okay, she wants to be left alone. I go to leave the room. Her screams would get louder. If so I try to hold her or touch her, maybe rub her back or whatever. Nope,
Mhm.
screams would get louder. Literally found that sitting about 2 to 3 feet away was the sweet spot.
Mhm.
And so, uh, because I wasn't leaving, but I wasn't, like you said, kinda getting too close. And then I actually ended up talking to myself, and I would say like, "Oh, it makes me so sad that I can't help you. When your brothers, would cry, I would rock them, and it makes me sad that you don't like to be rocked. I get it." And when I look back at that now, knowing more things that I know now, I realize I was regulating myself. I
Mhm.
wasn't because at that point I had already realized there's nothing I can do for her right now,
Right.
other than not make it worse. Like, like if I left the room, it would get worse. If I tried to touch her, it got worse. But
Mhm.
here is my sweet spot. Eventually, her words would start to come back.
Mhm.
We ended up getting into routine of afterwards, we would go snuggle in a chair and turn the TV on with like cartoons so she could handle the touch and the closeness and the connection, and then, it would slowly slow down. And sometimes she could talk about what it was. Sometimes she had no clue because so much of her stuff was pre-verbal and all of that. Like, she really didn't know. It was just instinct and guttural, like, survival responses coming out from whatever. So, you this applies just like you were saying with couples also. W We get, because as adults, and people talk about attachment, in attachment theory a lot. Well, as adults, our partners, whoever our closest person is our now primary attachment figure, but we are the primary attachment figure for each other, which is different in a parent-child relationship because the parent is the primary figure for the child, and then the parent has someone else to go to for their regulation. So I would have these episodes with my daughter, then after everything had settled down, I could go talk to my husband about it,
Mhm.
and if one is frustrated about it or if I needed to cry about it or whatever, I had him to regulate me after I had helped to regulate her. We talk about
Right.
this with, so that's why therapists have therapists, because they're
Right.
people, and then we need somebody to help us, not necessarily with our client stuff, but with their own stuff, right?
Mhm.
It's that long circle of people rubbing each other's backs, right? Like, or we're all
Mhm.
arguing with the massage. So, but what do you do when it's your partner and they are your person, but yet they're not available in that moment?
Well,
And that,
that's part of the slowing down, and this is what I tell people all the time. Slow down, use honest communication, communicate needs, ask what's needed, do these things. Because when we're talking about, the tiger's doing the tango, learn to learn how to dance, you have to go slow and learn the steps. Sometimes you step on the other person's foot. Sometimes you spin them the wrong way. Whatever the dance is. First off, you only know what the dance is going to be if you just jump right in there, right? I showed up in ballet shoes. You know, you showed up in cowboy boots. We're going to do the boot scoot and boogie. I showed up for the wrong dance. So
Mhm,
if you just look at it from that sort of practical uh, viewpoint of
mhm,
just slowing down. Hey, you don't use these wordings because it would drive me crazy if you did. You look a little upset right now. Is everything okay? That's asking the other person just be honest and answer. No, I'm not upset. I just got a lot on my mind. Okay, you want to talk about it? No, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, let me know if you do. Or the person looks back and says, I'm mad as a hornet at you. Okay, well, if you want to get it off your chest, I'm in a good place. Go ahead. Or I'm sorry you're mad at me. I want to find out what I did. I want to talk about it, but I've got to get out the door for work in 5 minutes. I don't think we should start it right now. Can we just hold this for later? And the other person recognizing that they're not shutting you down, just actually listen to those words. I'm getting ready to blow up on my spouse, my partner, whomever it is, and they have to leave the house in 5 minutes. Is this really going to be a productive conversation? No, because you know what? In those 5 minutes, that person's tiger is going to come out because all they're doing is looking at their watch saying, can we get this over with? You're threatening my time. You're doing this. But it's just open and honest communication and learning how to take those steps for the dance. One of the interesting things, not interesting, it's always interesting to me, that I have couples do. This is it's a great little experiment. I'm like, every time you want to fuss at him for something, or he wants to fuss at you, or they want to fuss at whatever it may be, I don't want you to do it. I want you to write it down. Even if just make short notes to yourself. Didn't take trash. Uh, Slammed the door. Whatever. Blah, blah, blah. I want you to do that between this week's session and next week's session. I don't want you to talk about it. And they're like, oh, it's going to build up a lot of anger. I'm like, honestly, when session time comes, I look at them and say, okay, we have an hour. Look at your list. And they're like, well, I mean, this was really no big deal. Well, we got over that. Well, okay, these are the three things I really want to talk about. I'm like, oh, so out of the 42 things on the list, there's really only three because I
yeah,
let the time pass. And when I do this experiment with them, it'll be different things. I'm like, well, how come this didn't bother? It is not bothering you now. Well, I realized I was in a bad mood that day, so it really wasn't them.
Mhm.
I realized that, oh, when they did that, it reminded me of what my daddy did or my mommy did or my brother did. And so I realized it was about me. And
Probably a couple of things on the list were the same kind of thing, right?
right,
So they were all I felt sort of dismissed or I felt disrespected, right? They all
right,
were all very similar. So it's
mhm,
like, oh yeah, we don't need to talk about all these individually. It's just this one thing.
right. You get the idea.
It's all with this one header.
Left bath towel on floor, left hand towel on counter, left socks on. Okay, so he's a slob. Got it. So she's a slob, whatever it is. Got it. But why did it trigger you? Right? So let's look at that. Let's not look so much, but again, that takes
When
dialogue.
when you give time, you're giving that space for that owl to return, and we're not
Mhm,
just dealing with the tiger. Tigers are
mhm.
awesome, we love them, and we need them. But we don't want them running everything.
No.
Yeah, it's like the Inside Out movie, I will always say, like, if people that watch the first one, the console can only hold one emotion at a time. One emotion ran the console. The
Mhm,
rival was either mad or sad or happy, and at the end of that movie, they had a bigger console where multiple emotions could be in there together. I view this the same way. We don't want just the tiger driving the bus. We don't want just the hippo driving because then we're working off of memories and not present day stuff. And
mhm.
so, and you don't want just the owl because then you're gonna be all logic and no emotion and feeling. It's gonna be very cold and, not very empathetic and not very connecting. So you want a console where all 3 of them can be there at the same time. But the problem is when we have issues, the tiger kinda steps up and takes the lead, and it might need to for a little bit, but you
Mhm.
just can't let it do it all the time, and that's the point of the dance is how do you get all the partners on there? Like you said, I liked your analogy with the shoes, right? "Oh, I brought my boots, you brought the ballet shoes." So, um, you know, how are we gonna do this? You might end up being able to do both dances, or you might have
Mhm.
one person has on one ballet shoe, one has on, one is it's that's the communication
Yeah.
piece, right? How do you talk through that. And,
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
learning your nervous system, and then once you learn yours, you can teach your partner your nervous system, why it does what it does, how it does what it does, what it means, and it's going back and forth. And a lot of times with couples, and it's easy. You can sit here and say, in a relationship for 10 or 12 years, we know each other so well. I'm like, if you know each other so well, why are you still hitting that same button? If you know each other so well, why are you surprised that they reacted this way? That's one of the things I love is when couples get together and they're like, and so he or she blew up again. And I'm like, and been doing it for 10 years. You know each other so well. What did you expect? And it's like we think because we know somebody, we're in relationship with somebody, that we know what's going on inside of them. But really, we don't. And it's that inside part that you've got to get to know how the nervous system works. Oh, when a door slams because you grew up in a house with domestic violence, when the door slams, you immediately retreat. That's why you're quiet the rest of the night. I get it. I slammed the door because it wouldn't latch. Your body says this is a threat. And so, understanding. I don't know why she gets so mad when I walk in the house with my shoes on. I didn't even track dirt because she grew up or he grew up in a house where there was hoarding, where there was, and they just, so it's learning those little things. Oh, now I get you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now I know why you respond to take the steps you step that you take.
Yeah, it's to me, it's the respect of, "Here, I care about you, so I'm going to learn about me."
Mhm.
Right? Like, so that I understand me better, and then I'll be able to understand you better, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's I hate to go back to the old cliche of putting on the oxygen mask on yourself first, but
Right.
it's the truth. You have to
Mhm.
you have to understand yourself more before you can actually understand others. Or if you spend all of your time just trying to figure them out
Mhm.
or pointing the finger, not necessarily pointing the finger where it's a bad thing, but like I'm gonna try and help you all the time. Like, "Oh, it seems like you're struggling, so I'm gonna help you," but you're not paying attention to your own tiger, you're neglecting your own tiger.
Mhm.
When you know, I don't want to get into too many dancing metaphors because I've never
Mhm.
taken too much official dancing lessons. But for they talk about like what one person leads in dancing, right? But
Right.
but you also, like you said, you have to sort of move together, and you
Mhm.
have to figure those moves out together. And yes, there's probably going to be toes stepped on or
Mhm.
a wrong turn or whatever. But if you watch, like I enjoy watching like salsa competitions
Mhm.
and other things like that when you watch people who dance a lot together, um, it's amazing, like, to how fluidly, like, they move together as an
Yeah.
entire one organism. And I've even seen, some videos where, people who've danced a lot, but they get, like, switch up partners, like, for certain
Mhm.
competitions, and they still do really well, and it's because they know themselves, right? They just
Right.
dance, and they see the person coming this way, so then they know they need to go this way,
Mhm.
even if they haven't practiced with that person. So once you practice it, those things that
Mhm.
you've taught your clients, once they start doing it, you won't have to think about it. It'll
Right.
be that muscle memory, right? You'll start
Mhm.
learning it, and then and also understanding that conflict is gonna happen, right? Like,
Mhm.
people are gonna have tigers, and their tigers are gonna tango, and they're gonna tussle, and
Mhm.
so that's okay as long and repair is the most important piece too. So if
Right.
you try to tango and you step on toes and you end up tussling, like you said, sort of take a break, take a breath, and
Mhm.
then come back and say, "Hey, this is what I was thinking and feeling. This is what I really meant." And it might need to be the next day. Sometimes people get really
Mhm.
rushed and feel like I need to fix this right away.
Mhm.
Again, that fear creeps in of, oh my gosh, my partner, I had a fight and they're upset with me and I need to fix this right now. But they may not be able to fix it right now. So a little bit of time, a little bit of
Mhm.
grace, but don't let it completely drop because if you do, then nothing gets resolved and there's resentment and that builds up. So you still need to come back and have the dance, even if the dance got messed up the first time, it's
Right.
okay. Come back and do the dance again later when people are ready. When everybody's got their boots, or
Right.
everybody's got their railway shoes, now come back and try again.
I had a couple teach me a great thing when they said, and it's funny that they compared it to a war room, and football game at the same time. They said, uh, we have the plans, we have the plays for the game, so we know when this happens, this is the play. When this happens, this is the play. And when one of the plays goes wrong, they said we wait usually 24 hours, and then we have a debriefing and say, all right, how come the play didn't work this time? What was different? How do we modify the play? And I was like, that's not a couple that gets it right all the time, but I think that it was like a beautiful thing that, okay, I've got a playbook. He or she does this, this is the move, right? And then I do this is their move. Well, wait a minute, that didn't work this time. So let's throw this one out, have a little debriefing, and write a new play. Okay, we got to roll here. Amy, thank you again. I guess I will see our folks down the road. Again, join us at Regulation Revolution. Give us your comments, your questions, your concerns, topic ideas, feedback, whatever you may have. And watch us when you can. Hear us as often as you can. Many episodes out there at this point. We've got about 25 as of this one, I think. Maybe.
Mhm.
So
This is something we got.
tune in and share with a friend and get your dance shoes and learn how to tango.
That's right. Tigers that tango. Love
Here's
it.
the tango.
Thank you.
Following program includes stories and situations that are not intended to identify any client or individual. Any similarities are coincidental and should not be considered reflective of any one person or group of people. The preceding program in no way constitutes therapeutic counseling and does not establish a therapeutic relationship or offer any premise of confidentiality with any listener or participant. If you or someone you know is in need of counseling services and reside in the Commonwealth of Virginia, please visit us at heartmindrba.com for more information.